Yeah, in case you didn't know, Christine Sinclair is pretty good at soccer. 185 goals, 290 caps, and she's not done. She's still scoring, so she will definitely add to that number. Hard to see anyone coming close to that feat. But there is some discussion as to who is the best of this generation. The other ones to consider, Abby Wambach, obviously the person that she passed in that list, and Marta from Brazil as well. Who do you like as the greatest of this generation, Carmelina?
I'm going to pivot from who do I like, because I don't think for me, for me, it's not necessarily a like. For Wambach, what I do see in her impact on the women's game was that she was a dominant figure from the start. She was part of every iteration of the professional game in the country. She led to obviously having the record for such a long time, but the influence she has had on the U.S. youth, her teammates, and now continues to have after retirement with her Wolfpack concept that we are all women fighting for the same causes, for me, makes her sort of a well-rounded, holistic, badass kind of woman.
One of the things about Wambach is that Wambach is a team winner. She won World Cup, she won Olympics. One of the things about Marta is that Marta is an individual winner. She's a 5-time Player of the Year winner. So, I mean, Marta is a fantastic player all of her own. She's coming from a country that doesn't have the resources that the US or even Canada has. And I think that maybe you're not talking about greatest of all time, so she's certainly in the conversation. But for me, in terms of influence, most influential of all times, Marta has to be that person, because Brazil barely had women's soccer before Marta. Marta had to jump over so many barriers to get into the game and to elevate Brazil, women's soccer in Brazil, to the point where it's at. And there's still a lot of room to grow there, but certainly she is legendary in that sense, and that's, you know, pretty incredible considering how great she is on the field as well.
You're both talking about impact and inspiration. For me, that was Christine Sinclair growing up, around the same age, the younger sister who looked up to Christine Sinclair as a player. So I'm wondering, why hasn't she had the same type of impact around the world?
There's something about global recognition. You know, you talked about Marta's individual awards that put her in the heads and hearts and minds of all the member associations, all the girls across the world. Sinclair never was afforded those opportunities, and by no means is she a victim for that. But really, when you see that the global recognition hasn't been there for her and is now, I'd be hard pressed to say that the next decade we aren't going to be talking more about Sinclair and what she's been able to do with the platform she has.
It certainly was a topic of conversation this week after Sinclair took over that record. Like, why don't we hear more about Christine Sinclair? Why isn't Christine Sinclair getting these awards? And I think it's a very valid question. I think that she sort of falls into a weird sort of middle ground where Canada has not won as much as the United States. I think that for much of Abby Wambach's career, Abby Wambach was surrounded by 10 players who were probably better than the 10 players that Christine Sinclair was surrounded by, and still Christine Sinclair's managed to hit this record, and I think that's something to be considered. But just in terms of the overall winningness, I think that's where Christine Sinclair unfortunately gets lost a little bit. I don't think it's fair, but I certainly think that that's part of the reason.